back to Beyond the Buzzer, the Basketball Fix premier podcast, videocast, where we talk about NBL. And boys, back for episode 2 of season 2. We had some great engagement on the first vid, back over 1,000 views on YouTube. And don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube right now and you haven't already subscribed to the channel, click it straight away right there. Josh, Jez, it's good to be back, boys.
Oh, very good to be back. It was so much fun to be back for the first episode, and now we have something more than just speculation to talk about. You know, people love when you put your rumors out there and they say, "What grounding have you got? You know, what have you got? Who are you? What the fuck's your opinion mean anything?" And now we start to see some basketball, and some of our opinions are looking pretty good to start off, and a couple of us have got a couple of things to work on, but. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, mate. But it's just exciting to have basketball back on our screens. And off the top, quickly, I just want to give a quick little shout out to SJ from Love of the Game and Zach as well, who works with SJ, for heading over on behalf of the Basketball Fix as well, capturing plenty of great content for the Basketball Fix as well, whether it's videos, interviews with players, everything as well. And secondly, I want to add as well a quick little shout out to Ben Giddey. With the unfortunate news, it looks like he suffered a neck injury as well, which will rule him out for the start of the season with those bloody rings coming down to him as well. So don't know how on earth that happens at a professional building, especially something like the AIS, but apparently there was a pin that was supposed to be put in and it wasn't put in. So the AIS will be expecting a big lawsuit on their hands very quickly. But again, mate, welcome back to episode 2 and I can't wait.
Jez, is there anything to add on there, buddy?
No, nothing.
All right.
I'm keeping quiet today. My hat speaks for itself today, actually. I'm pumped for the Jackie. What a pre-season. Couple of absolute star imports. We cleaned out shop, and who needs Jack McVeigh? We got a couple of absolute keepers, especially after the Blitz.
That's it, boys. All right. Today's episode, all about the NBL Blitz. Going to talk storylines, debate a few things, and kind of build on the excitement that come out of that tournament in Canberra and look ahead to NBL 26. Now, Josh, the first thing I want to kind of speak about is the Tassie JackJumpers. And Jez has already been on the road there with these boys. Give us your initial kind of thoughts about the JackJumpers and then dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah, well, it's quite funny, mate, because, you know, you copped a bit of shit last week on the Basketball Fix on, I think it was Instagram and YouTube for having them missing the 6 last week. You kind of just briefly threw out your 4 names who you thought were going to miss the finals heading into NBL 26. And a couple of people got pretty rolled up, and that's what Tasmanians do. They love to get pretty defensive, and, you know, it's obviously that mantra of it's us against the mainland as well, and I absolutely love it. But I was pretty similar. I didn't really think that they were a lock to make the top 6, but watching them over the Blitz, I think they're a genuine lock now as well. So you look at the overall mix, and again, the concerns and the questions will come at Josh Bannan and Will Magnay's expense, purely based around injury, not over performance. Those guys were absolutely incredible at the NBL Blitz. I think Josh Bannan had a 22-point, 11 rebound game with 2 blocks, and Will Magnay pretty much didn't blow the stat sheet apart, but did everything so well. You know, averaged around that 9 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, roughly numbers as well. So he was incredible. But I think for me, though, mate, it was the 3 imports that really genuinely surprised me. And they all did it in different ways. You had Bryce Hamilton, who's probably had the most talk about him heading into NBL 26. I know guys like Pete Hooley in particular have been very hot on him. But he was really, really impressive. He had one game where he had 25 points. The second game was a little bit less than that. And then similar with David Johnson as well. He had about 3 points or 6 points in the first game. And then the second game, he had a 25-point explosion as well and was really solid. So those 2 guys, if they can, I guess, zone into how they're going to work together and sort of picking their poison in terms of when they take shots and when they pass the ball around, it's going to be super exciting. But I think what I'm going to go here now, though, he's quickly become my favourite player in the NBL. Tyger Campbell, I put a video out after their first game against the Cairns Taipans, I think it might have been. This dude just impressed me. Like, when we're talking about genuine point guards and what the Tassie JackJumpers have probably needed for the last couple of seasons, it's been that guy who can control the tempo, find the shots, find their players in good positions, and really make the team look quite well strung and I guess really together as well. And he averaged 8 assists over the NBL Blitz, 14 points, and 8 assists in the first game, and then 12 points and 8 assists in the second game as well. And his assist to turnover ratio was just absolutely incredible. So for me, he's got me super excited now. I'm calling them a lot coming into NBL 26. They've still got some good depth. Obviously, Bannan comes over, Nick Marshall comes over as well, Majuk Deng. And I guess when we're looking at the team play style, I've got a few little statistics written down here. So they allowed 95 points per game over the Blitz. Again, these are just Blitz and preseason numbers, so we don't really want to put too much weight onto them. But I think they are going to probably allow a few more points this season. This team it still feels balanced, but it feels more balanced in the offensive end than defensive end, which is going to be exciting, I think, for the JackJumpers. And they average 97 points per game. Now, some of the statistics, 41.5 rebounds per game, 23 assists per game, 6.5 steals, and most importantly for me, though, shot the three-point ball at 39%. Something that they were very horrible at last season as well. So all these numbers are, steadily increasing. Bryce Hamilton averaged 17 points over the 2 games. Josh Bannan, 18 points over the 2 games. And Will Magnay, 12 points over the 2 games as well. So all these numbers are looking really, really good. And I think right now, I know it's very early, but we can still, I think, lock the Tasmania JackJumpers into a final spot.
Preach it, brother. Preach it.
All right, Josh, take a breath, mate. Jez, I think we might just give the podcast back to Josh here and let him run it himself.
No talk about Perth. It's all about Adelaide and the JackJumpers now, man. What's going on?
Mate.
NBL 26. It's a whole new Josh Higgins. I love it.
Got to be more broad, I guess. But enough of me talking right now. It's time for Jez to have a couple of words as well.
Yeah, Jez, we should just give him the podcast back, mate. We don't have to talk anymore. He can
he can run solo. But it's all right. He can run solo when he's given credit where credit is due. But I think quickly just on the JackJumpers, while we're there, I think you did a good interview with Darren Smith just at the end of last season. And he gave that clear picture that they were out after a more attacking style of player and they were going to sort of shift things over there. And that's exactly what they've done. And they've found those guys. So, yeah, it's exciting times because it's a real shift in Tasmania. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out over the whole season and with Scott Roth and his coaching style. But it looks good so far. But I think you sort of also hit the nail on the head going through all of the imports just in Tasmania. What sort of I pulled out of the Blitz was the field of imports this season has me excited because feels like obviously the NBL has been trying to build to attract better players, attract a higher quality player, and it certainly feels like they've done that if you can judge it straight from the NBL Blitz because I think we saw some huge performances from Isaiah Brockington, sort of average. I don't know, I'm going to throw fantasy statistics at you, obviously, because fantasy gives you a little bit of an idea of, I don't know, the overall player and how they can be put together as a player as a whole, especially with GameDay, which we have sort of jumped over and do our GameDay NBL pods. So you've got Isaiah Brockington that had the best average from New Zealand with 58 GameDay points over those 2 games. He averaged 20 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2.5 steals. You mentioned Tyger Campbell. He was the next best, 56.5 GameDay points with 12 points, 3 rebounds, the massive 9 assists and 1.5 steals. And then Javon Freeman Liberty had a massive ceiling of a game. So he scored 71 GameDay points against Sydney with 27 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals. So we can see these imports being able to put up some massive numbers straight away. Yes, it's a little bit easier to do that in the NBL Blitz. Teams don't play defense as much, but I think you can see that there's a high quality. We got some players that just might be able to push the button like Kendrick Davis did last year in his first season in the NBL. And that's what you want to see. That's what the NBL wants. That's their goal. So we felt like the NBL has been moving forward each and every year over the last few years. And it feels like maybe now we're starting to attract some of the top grade talent that are still trying to get into the NBA, just like Kendrick Davis. And we might have a couple of guys here that are going to be at that level straight away. So that's what sort of gets me pumped about this season and got me pumped after watching some NBL Blitz action.
Have you boys not learned from all your years in sports, premierships are not won in the preseason?
We don't care. We don't care. We're just trying to get pumped. There's going to be offense. There's going to be steals. There's going to be blocks. There's going to be 3 points. Come on. We're just getting pumped for the season, Ryan. Stop being a fucking party pooper.
Get pumped all you want, but don't be taking these performances something that's going to be
we got to, Ryan.
Coming night to night, every single night throughout this season. I think you need to take it with a pinch of salt, boys. You can be excited about how teams have played, about how guys have been performing on the floor, but I think the freedom of play is going to be reined in when round one finally comes, and some teams are going to be structured a little bit differently, and there's going to be different focuses in their gameplay, especially on the defensive side, and that's kind of what you touched on a little bit there. But Josh, I'm interested to hear from you about...
Who invited this guy? Who invited this guy to the podcast? Huh?
Hey, talk about being the downer, mate.
I'm down.
Don't be throwing
Get
shit.
Excited.
Tassie hat over
We
there.
got some basketball. We got some basketball going. The JackJumpers are going to win the comp. Come on. The season can end now. It's beautiful. It's right where it should be.
But Josh, what other aspects did you take out of this blitz? And maybe is there a team where you thought maybe they didn't expect or didn't play up to your expectations?
Yeah, well, it's funny you asked that, mate, and I think I'm going to jump on it here as well. And I was pretty down on the Sydney Kings last week, you know, when we were talking about a team that may miss the finals, and there are a couple of areas of concern that I did hone in on, and they were quite true, obviously, as well. So I think in the first game, I'd have to get the stats up. I think they actually shot at 21% from the 3-point line, and that was my area of concern for the Sydney Kings. It was all about, do they have enough of a shooting game to be able to either keep themselves in or to get back in games quickly as well? So, you know, Jalen Galloway had patches where he could hit a few 3-pointers and then went missing. Matthew Dellavedova, very similar. Tim Suarez looked like he wanted to shoot more 3-point shots than go inside as well throughout certain patches of the game. Xavier Cooks, obviously we know doesn't have much of a 3-point shot. Bull Qual is still trying to figure out where he even fits in this lineup. Kwat Noi looks a little bit down on confidence as well. So again, it's still the blitz and it is still preseason. But for me, I'm just concerned with the Sydney Kings. Like I dead set, I'm really concerned with them. The structure, they're very top heavy. You probably look at them and you kind of would be like, what do you mean they're top heavy? But I think they are. You know, the guys who they're expecting growth from maybe won't give that growth. Like I look at a Jalen Galloway, he should be coming into this season sky high on confidence. And it looked like they've sort of brought him back to reality a little bit and have made him that role player again instead of just letting him just harbour his natural game as well. So, yeah, again, like you bang on when you are talking about, you know, we can't take too much out of it, but what we can take out of it is game styles and how you play. And that's where I think Tassie really excited me. You know, they've just been a team who's typically been bring the ball up, pass the ball a couple of times. If it doesn't work, get it inside to Will Magnay. He'll find a bucket and then go down the other end and play smothering defense. Whereas they played really, really fast offense. They played really good defense and they showed why they're going to be a top 6 team in the league as well. So again, a number of import players still out. You know, Adelaide didn't have Bryce Cotton, nor do they have Montrezl Harrell. The Perth Wildcats are still looking to sign that last import. Same with the Illawarra Hawks. They don't know what they're doing. So there's a couple of pieces to the puzzle for all these teams to still be assessed. But one more quick one. The Brisbane Bullets, like a 30-point flogging at the hands of Melbourne United in preseason. It's not a good sign. But that team in there in Melbourne looks really strong. And Jesse Edwards looks like a genuine superstar as well. So it was just exciting having basketball back. You know, it was really, really exciting for sure.
All right, boys, let's move on to a next segment. And Josh, it feels like you maybe have found a bit of an opportunity for the NBL to get some more fans on board, a bit of a lull in the Australian sporting landscape. Give us some background into this.
Yeah, well, it's definitely an interesting time of the year. And we obviously saw, again, because of where the Blitz was, there was a bit of a raging success with the NBL. In Canberra, obviously, they're just looking for anything right now, just to have anything sport, and especially in the NBL world as well. And obviously, they've got a really strong NRL presence with the Canberra Raiders, who I believe, I'm not an NRL fan, but I think they've secured the minor premiership as well over there, watching you boys at the head of the game as well, keeping me up to date with all the NRL news and everything else. But I think there's a bit of a lapse in the market right now for the NBL to potentially pounce out. Now, in the AFL, they have this stupid pre-finals bye round where no team plays any football. And in the NRL, the seasons are coming to a little bit of an end. And you sort of, some teams have secured spots and are resting players, like we saw Penrith Panthers on the weekend rest. I believe it was 16 players in that game against the Sharks. So, or against the Bulldogs, I should say, sorry. So, there's a lapse and there's a bit of a chance, I think, right now for the NBL to start their season a little bit early. Maybe secure some sort of deal with Channel 10 or Channel 9 or even Channel 7 where you're on free-to-air telly and you just get those instant eyes. And it's not about the sort of immediate effects. Like, it may not be a raging success, but it will get some more eyes on the game and the league in particular as well, because we know what we're like. Aussies love sport. It doesn't matter if it's on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, doesn't matter. We'll watch anything. So if it's on free-to-air and it's easy to sort of get into and watch, I think it would be a major raising success for the NBL. And they're always talking about extending the season and they're trying to push the season back. So you kind of, if you push it too far back at the end of the season, you're sort of getting into the start of the AFL and the NRL season where all the attention is. And if you sort of go, where they do start, you're kind of in the peak of the NRL and the AFL finals. So maybe it's nice to sort of start that week or two earlier, get all that attention as the AFL and the NRL slowly wind down before finals, and then get those immediate viewerships as well. So a little bit of food for thought. I'm sure obviously a lot of people are going to disagree. I put something out on Twitter. A lot of people did disagree. But again, you've got to try and figure out where you're going to expand these seasons at certain times.
Yeah, I don't I don't totally disagree, but I think it's really, really tough. I think it's a tough space. It's hard for anything to work in Australia when the NRL and AFL season is on. And it just depends, you can possibly get a few more eyes there and a few people being interested and skim across it, absolutely. But I think financially it's tough because there's not going to be enough TV ratings. There's not going to be enough people at the stadiums. I think it is going to be a little bit of a struggle, and that, I don't know, maybe you take the good with the bad and go, okay, well, we're getting a few more fans because it is a little bit quiet, but I think people are still extremely pumped for NRL and AFL, and they sort of locked in, even if their team has missed the finals. I think you're still very, very loyal to that code, and you're going to sit and you're going to watch those games on the TV. So I think if you're going to do it, you've got to do it pretty strategically. And maybe it is making those games midweek, so you're still not clashing with the NRL that's on the weekend. Or, I think maybe that's the way you've got to go about it if you want some sort of midweek action when there isn't so much buzz early in the week with teams being released and all of that sort of thing. So, maybe you could implement it softly, or maybe have one of these sort of half rounds like, say, the NBL, the NRL and AFL do, where there's a few teams playing a little bit earlier, or you split up the opening round over those first 2 weeks, so you find a little bit of balance and maybe create a little bit of buzz that way. But I don't know. I just think it is so tough for the NBL to even think about extending the season when you have that window where there is basically really only cricket to sort of keep you fascinated, or American sport. So, yeah, I think it is. I think it's tough, but yeah, it would be nice.
It's definitely tough though, but I'm going to use me as an example. I don't give two fucks about the NRL. I just don't care. I've never watched NRL, and I don't care about the
AFL because you go for West Coast.
And I was about to say the AFL. I am, as
Not
far as I'm concerned, yeah, it's so hard because I don't care. We've won one game this year, and all those teams in the bottom 9 of the AFL have known for 8-9 weeks now that their team isn't going to make the finals. It was the top 9 for the last 6 rounds in the AFL competing for those top 9 spots, those top 8 spots, I should say. So I don't give a shit. I'm looking for any other thing to watch right now. I've been watching NRL just to watch something different because I just love sport. So that's Adelaide people, that's Perth people, that's probably Tasmanian people. Brisbane, Sydney, and Canberra are probably the 3 states who kind of, are more NRL centric. But again, if your teams are out, do you really give a shit about the code of sport that's going on as well? So I don't know. I just find there's an appeal for the NBL there. And again, they want to extend the season. You're either going to go into the off-season and pre-season of the AFL and the NRL, or you're going to go into the sort of lull at the end of the season heading into finals to be able to maybe capture some audiences as well. Because I can guarantee you that John Cain Arena will still sell out no matter what is going on around it. RAC Arena with the Perth Wildcats will still sell out. There is still such a great sort of fan bases all around Australia with the NBL. So I don't necessarily think it's about having bums on seats, because I think they're still going to sell out games. It's more about just attracting that sort of viewership on the TV screens potentially throughout the week as well, is where I go with this.
Yeah, I agree, mate, because the season's starting during finals anyway. It starts in the middle of September, and that's right in the middle, like second or third week of finals, depending on the code.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree that people right now, it's like, oh, they've been so used to having between, 8, 9 games of footy every weekend, depending on what code, or maybe the double if you follow them both. And then all of a sudden there's almost nothing. And you're like, well, I just want to see something on the TV just to get me juices going. And if you put a couple of games on, thinking, they're going to be there anyway in 2 or 3 weeks' time, no matter what, well, okay, start it now, and maybe you have that opportunity to get a few more, and that will then, once the season, the footy codes are finished, then I watched that basketball game a few weeks ago. That was pretty good. I'll watch some more, and all of a sudden you've got your fans stuck for that season. So I think it's, as you said, Josh, the game is going to continue to expand no matter what, and it's going to be either you're going to expand it front load or you're going to back load it, and why not take the opportunity when it's available to you?
Yep.
All right, boys, let's
Perfect.
move along. The next segment here: buy, hold, and sell. So we've got some games under the belt. We've got some vision on the screens about players, about teams. And I think, Josh, we're going to start with you. Who are you buying? What stocks are set to rise this season in NBL 26?
Yeah, for this bloke in particular, I'm buying a whole lot of hairspray. I think we'll start off there as well. And I've been so hot on this bloke, like, even with GameDay, Jez and I just recorded a GameDay squad episode as well. Very hot on this bloke coming into a fresh NBL 26 season. That's Tyger Campbell. I just love his poise, his leadership, his ball handling, the way he controls the offense. I just think he's going to have a very dominant season in NBL 26. And like Jez spoke about earlier, 12 points per game, 8.5 assists per game, really low turnover numbers, and just looks so composed as well. And he's played for a massive college. You don't just go to UCLA and ride the bench. He was a star at UCLA as well. So I think if I'm looking at buying some stocks in somebody heading into NBL 26, it's 100% Tyger Campbell.
Jez, who are you buying, buddy?
Yeah, I'm buying in to Petteri Koppanen. If I'm going to just single it down, New Zealand, it's the NBL Blitz, Ryan. I understand, so don't pull that card again. But I think they showed. I was just waiting for you to jump in, but I'm buying into what he's done in New Zealand. They had a tough year last year, but it's his first year in the comp. Now they come out and they actually put in some really, really good performances in the Blitz. Yes, it was the Blitz, but they did that without Lopez, without Rob Lowe, without Rob Barker, one of their imports. PJC only played 4 minutes in the game against Cairns, where they absolutely smashed them by 20 points. They beat Southeast Melbourne, who I rate a lot this season. They beat them 109 to 101. So 2 very, very different performances. One where they put up a lot of points and showed a lot of offense. The other where they actually showed that they had a little bit of defensive prowess, even if it is against some second-rate players or some, a team that's obviously restricting time for their big stars. But I think 2 really good performances and 2 very, very different performances from New Zealand without some of their big players. So as much as you can buy in after the NBL Blitz, I'm buying into the New Zealand Breakers and maybe not writing them off. Like, I think we didn't even really talk about them at all last episode, because you're just like, but we love Kareem Lopez, and I think everybody in the league loves Coach Koppanen. So can definitely buy into them a little bit this season after their performance in the NBL Blitz.
Josh, just on the Breakers, I was trying to bring up their roster, who they've lost, who they've picked up. You could say that the team has gotten significantly better from last season, and the reason that they failed kind of that mid-season where they lost a heap of games, it was prominently due to injury. So, like, there's a really good chance that the Breakers, if they get their players and keep them on the court this year, that the run they had at the start of the season and the run they had at the end of the season could be, what that NBL 26 looks like.
Yeah, I think they've done really, really well. And I think they've obviously allowed the natural development of players. Like, we still haven't seen, we're going to see a Sam Menenga, for example, I think continually grow into NBL 26. Karim Lopez, the exact same as well, plus the 3 imports they bring in. Like, Rob Baker's going to be a star. Massive shout to him. He's playing over the America Cup basketball for Team USA. That's won the bronze medal, I think, yesterday. And he had some really good statistics as well. So, but where I see them being most exciting is the depth. You speak about guys like Ruben Tarangi, Rob Lowe obviously comes over. Taylor Britt, who's had an incredible couple of seasons. Wherever he's played basketball, has always been solid as well. They've just got so much depth and versatility in their lineup as well. So, yeah, I'm quite excited about them now. I needed to see them obviously on the court, and Parker Jackson Cartwright is one of the best players in the NBL. There's no questions about that. At the top of his game, he is one of the top 2 or 3 best players in the NBL. So they've definitely got enough. And, like Jez said, they showed enough as well at the NBL Blitz, albeit it was the Blitz, but the game style is going to stack up in the current NBL format, I should say.
Jez, is Josh shucking up a bit to PJC there after getting hounded on Instagram?
Getting roasted on Instagram? Yeah, I think so. But
yeah.
I think he proved his point on the court, or New Zealand did anyway, that they're a sleeper.
We've given a lot of love to that bloke throughout the basketball fix era.
Yeah,
he's been one of our
You also jumped on the bandwagon of hating Derek Rucker with him, so I think that's the biggest compliment you could have done last season.
I think it's very easy to forget. You say one thing nowadays and everyone's on you, but you can say 3 years worth of shit and no one will remember. We've had Parker Jackson Cartwright in the top 2 or 3 when we did our rankings to sort of take the piss out of Ruck, and Rucker didn't even have him in his top 15 at certain stages. So Parker, when we're talking about who doesn't know basketball, you shouldn't be coming at us, mate. But anyways, we'll leave that there for another day.
Maybe he's got to talk more shit more often, so it all gets a bit like I don't want to say any certain presidents of different countries, but because we want to go there soon and not get kicked out. But if you say enough shit and say it as often as possible, then it all just kind of muddles into itself and you can't remember what someone said because they talk shit so often. So maybe that's a play for us there, boys.
Definitely. The new learnings, the new way of the basketball fix.
Quick call to action. If you're watching now and you haven't subscribed, do it. Check out the other videos on the YouTube channel. GameDay is a fantastic fantasy league game. There's videos there from Josh and Jez that are showing you how to play the game and how to get into it. Step-by-step tutorial. This guy is he's old and doesn't understand tech. He can play it. You can play it. Have a look at it.
I'm done at fantasy. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. I'm a fantasy gun.
The Reebok series where Josh looks at the young stars, up-and-coming stars of basketball in Australia. It's fantastic, a really community-based series that you need to get around. So check that out as well. But boys, the holds, and this is probably, I think, the most important one to think about here is you have your thoughts about a team or a player pre-season, then you see something in the beginning. You're like, oh, I don't know if that sits right, whether it's a positive or negative, but you're not ready to pull the trigger yet. And Josh, one of these teams, and it's been back and forth about this team all through the off season and now through the pre-season, it's the Brisbane Bullets.
Yeah, mate, I'm going to hold on the Brisbane Bullets right now because if we look at the first game against the Sydney Kings where they won that game and scored 100 points, Javon Freeman Liberty, 27 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, was an absolute star. Jalen Adams as well had, I think it was 18 points and 6 assists. And Casey Prather just sort of went with the flow and did everything. And I put a video out on social media and I was like, these guys are genuine title chance in NBL 26. Well, the next game they go out there and get smacked by Melbourne United by 30-odd points. And, there was a number of reasons why they got smacked, but I think the biggest concerning point for them was that depth and lack thereof. And, they've still got Tyrell Harrison to come back into the team in NBL 26. And I think when we look at the end of the season, he's going to be a top 2 or 3 at the absolute max center in the NBL. I don't think he'll fall below that number at all throughout any stage of the season. Incredible summer league performance. So having a guy who is a really good interior threat and defender, he's also a good lob threat. He can score inside. He's doing really, really good things, obviously, in his basketball journey. I think it's only going to bolster this team as well. So I'm still going to hold on them. Obviously, only scoring 60 points, albeit in a preseason game, just doesn't look good. So you kind of are seeing that, okay, this is their ceiling, and now we have like a hard floor for them. But again, though, they played a lot of their young guys. A lot of their star players didn't play a huge amount of minutes as well, albeit they're probably getting blown out, and they probably thought, okay, we might as well bring everyone in here and just sort of call it for the rest of the game. But yeah, I'm going to hold on the Brisbane Bullets. I still think they're going to be a really, really solid team in NBL 26, a top 3 or top 4 team come the season's end. So I'm holding my stocks on the Brisbane Bullets.
Jez, another team that I was a little bit cold on heading into the Blitz and this NBL 26 season, Southeast Melbourne. They lost some key players that I believe really carried the scoring for them last year, but you're not ready to sell on them just yet.
No, not at all. I think they've got so much versatility in their lineup at the moment, like especially with their imports that they've brought in. Last episode, we talked about Vrens Blaženbo.
Not bad.
I got it. And then obviously we saw the first bit of action of John Brown the second. I believe he was the second, not the third. The second John Brown, the third John Brown.
Third.
All right, the third John Brown. And then we even sort of see Malik Lewis. I think we haven't talked about maybe Malik Lewis enough in these first couple of episodes because we saw some massive moments and really, really great periods last season where he stepped up and was extremely key on defense. He was an absolute beast. And then he was able to sort of step out a little bit and pop a couple of threes and be a little bit of a scorer and be an option there. So you've got Malik Lewis. But it's like with Malik, Vrens and John Brown, you've got a couple of guys that can play sort of multiple positions. They can move into the 5 if need be. They can play 4. They can play 3. There's so much versatility there. And then you've got Nathan Sobey where, yeah, he obviously had some swings last season, but I think he's also ready to step up. He has a lot of confidence behind him from Josh King. And I still see with their results, they pumped Sydney by 20 points. They hit, 47% from the 3-point line in that. What was that?
Who wouldn't pump the Sydney Kings by 20 points at the moment?
Yeah, so. We'll see. But they've hit 19 of 43 points. So obviously you should win games when you're hitting threes at that percentage. So especially against the Sydney Kings who can't shoot threes or didn't have Kendrick Davis in that match at least. So like I think, and then obviously they played in a little bit of a back and forth game against the New Zealand Breakers. So I'm definitely still on Southeast Melbourne to be an absolute contender and push for, definitely be in the hunt for the title and be a top 4 team.
Big takes, boys. All right, let's get into the sell side. And Josh, I'm not really sure you understand the sell here because you're selling that a person isn't selling shares that this player is not going to be a star. I don't know. You tell us.
I did the same thing.
I don't know, actually.
We may as well do this together. I'm selling that, copping out that Perth are actually going to be good. Selling the take that they were going to be shit.
Fucked.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way I sort of looked at it. I was kind of just like, the way I looked at it, I think a lot of people were kind of in the boat of like if we're looking at it this way, the share was that Dylan Windler was going to be worse than he was going to be good, if that makes sense. So the share to buy was that Dylan Windler was going to be shit in NBL 26. And I'm selling that share now. Like, I'm like, if we were like, okay, Dylan's production this season is going to be, worse than good. And I think at the start of the season, a lot of people would have gone, okay, I'm probably going to buy those shares. But I'm selling them now, and I'm selling them in a massive way. I think he's going to be a genuine, at the end of the season, all NBL first or second teamer. And there's one game in particular, and I've seen it a few times from Dylan Windler throughout his last season as well for the Perth Wildcats, where he just does this stat stuffing game. 27 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 4 blocks against the Illawarra Hawks. And in the first game against Melbourne United, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 steals against them as well. So he just does everything so well. And the importance he's going to have on his shoulders in NBL 26 to be not only that great defender, but that great offensive player as well, which is more his natural game, is he's just going to be such a complete player as well. So I think we had a few stats last season, and I remember harping on about it quite a bit, about Perth's win-loss record when Dylan Windler would play versus when he wouldn't play. I think when he was on the court, they were an 85% win team. And obviously he missed games last season, but his importance to the team to be able to lock down the best offensive player and also be able to score 20 odd or 18 to 20 points per game is really crucial to this team as well. So, in terms of selling the stocks that he isn't going to be a star in NBL 26 is where I went with it. I'm going to be completely buying every single stock in Dylan Windler this year because, I don't know, albeit I know he's had that injury history, which we've seen not only in the NBL, but in the NBA as well. I think if he can continue to have his body at a really good level, I think he's going to be an absolute superstar heading into NBL 26.
Well, if Dylan needs some support from a player after being anointed an All-NBA for the upcoming season, he can ring Cam Oliver from last season. Josh anointed him an All-NBA NBL player.
And an MVP.
worked out. Fantastic. Jez, you mentioned a little bit, and I just want to kind of revisit your take here. You are, in a similar way, you're selling the shares that people were thinking Perth are going to be bad.
Yeah, I 100%. I think we saw enough in the NBL Blitz to see exactly like what you said. Dylan Windler will step up, and I guess yes, it's the Blitz, so we got to see it when the pressure's on in the actual season. I just see that they do have a good balance, and now I think they made the decision. They've made some decisions around their point guard. They're going to. I think we're going to see players actually perform better without Bryce Cotton being there. I think you don't really know your place when you've got a superstar like Bryce Cotton in your team. I think it's hard to sort of find your place because you're playing a role maybe that, not that you don't think that you should play, but maybe you feel like you're a better player or you can do something different better because you obviously have to play around the needs, or you need to be the deliverer for Bryce Cotton and he's got to be there. So I think Perth have a real opportunity, and a lot of the young players there, to be able to step up and play the role that they want to play. And that's definitely a guy like Dylan Windler. I think he can definitely step up. You've got Dylan Windler was awesome, and Perth were really good when Windler was in there getting rebounds. They've got a solid rebounder in Joe Luala-Shul. So I think we're going to be able to see him and Elijah Pepper and Ben Henschel all sort of step up and play that role. I think we'll definitely find out in these first few rounds what Perth are all about. And I'm happy to say now I'm ready for them to be a contender and maybe not miss the finals like I mentioned last week.
Jez, has the comment section got to you, mate? I've just quickly got to get some receipts up, and you were pretty harsh on Perth, and you've taken 2 games of preseason basketball and completely flipped on your opinions.
Look at you kissing Parker Jackson Cartwright thus. You can't throw this in my face.
No, but hang on, just let me read this. Let me read this comment to you quickly, all right? It was Brado Year of Tiger, and he goes, Nuffy on the far right hates Perth. I wouldn't sleep on Perth. And that was after our last video where you were Perth ain't going to make the finals and everything. And I was still of some agreeance as well. But I think quickly on Perth before we move on to the last segment of the show. But I think they've just shown that the game style has been slightly tinkered. And Sunday Detch didn't play. Joe Luala-Shul didn't play. The mysteriously, there's rumours of Kobe Simmons coming over to the Perth Wildcats, which would be a decent get, played with Christian Doolittle as well. I've also heard another name, and I'm going to just throw it out there. I don't give a fuck anymore. But Ian Clark is a name that I've heard a few people talk to me about. And that's where I think there's a bit of a shift between Ben Henschel being the 2-man to the 1-man. He was the point guard for the Perth Wildcats throughout the NBL Blitz. So Ian Clark, I'm not taking it to the bank right now, but I've had someone tell me that he's 80% done for the Perth Wildcats next season. So, a bit of context, he was Dylan Windler was Ian Clark's best man at his wedding, and I think it might have been the vice versa as well. So those 2 boys are like super, super close. So, yeah, it'd be an interesting one for sure. Maybe you run a mixture of Sunday and Ben Henshaw at the point guard. You have Ian Clark coming off the bench. I don't know how it would work out, but that's just a name I'll throw out there quickly as well for the Perth Wildcats. So probably not a massive needle mover, but again, brings that experience, class, and poise that you probably need to be a genuine contender in NBL 26 as well. So I'll leave that there, but I like the change in the Perth Wildcats, I guess, in terms of selling. They're not going to be any good.
Yeah, I'm still selling them. All right, boys, final segment to wrap it all up, and it's the Flashback Fix. We're going to look back in history, and this week we're looking back at the NBL Next Star program. And Josh, you're going to give us your top 3 Next Stars throughout the history of the program. It's been going now for quite a few years, and then Jez and I are going to maybe roast you or give you some cred, or I don't know, we'll give our opinions on your flashbacks throughout the NBL history.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this, mate. And I watch a lot of Sunday Footy show in the AFL as well. And they do this thing called Deep Dive by Matthew Lloyd. And he just looks back to a certain round in a certain year, or, you know, a certain round's number and the best moments from that in the AFL history. And I thought, let's bring something of similar ilk to the NBL, and we can get some serious history involved. And, you know, obviously I can teach you a little bit of history. We can all learn a bit of history. Obviously exciting times, obviously looking back at the past as well. So Flashback Fix is going to be the first installment today. And like you mentioned, it's the top 3 Next Stars in my opinion. Now, I'm going to go from 3 to 1, and they're all for different reasons. So I'm going to start off with number 3. I have Alexander Sarr. So Sarr was obviously picked 2 a couple of years ago in the NBA draft, and he was the highest official pick as of right now in the NBA draft for an NBL Next Star. And he was also the first player to go up there and be announced as Alex Sarr from the Perth Wildcats and the NBL and all that sort of stuff as well. It was a massive moment for the NBL, having a guy, you know, drafted in the top 3, come over from the Perth Wildcats. A really good year, I think you can look at it from a rookie consistent year for the Perth Wildcats as well. So he's going to be a genuine superstar and a guy who's probably going to have a very long NBA career as well for the Washington Wizards, and will make some big, big cash as well. So that's number 3 for me. Number 2 is the only Aussie on this list. And I guess that's why I want to put him on here as well, because we can talk about the Americans and the European players who have come over, but I think Josh Giddey deserves to be the number 2 NBL Next Star of all time, because I don't know if you boys remember though, heading into his draft, so many people were writing him off. He can't shoot, can't score, always turns the ball over, you know, he's clunky, everything like that. And I reckon there was because there was a slight little stigma that he was an Australian basketball player. And I still write home about this, that Ben Simmons has fucked that sort of style player, especially coming over from Australia. Aussies get no credit until you absolutely earn it in the NBA as well. So Josh Giddey, I think, brought that Australianism, if that's even a word, to the NBL Next Star program, where we saw a dominant Australian player come over here and play really, really well in the NBL, and then went over to the NBA. And look what he's doing as well now for the Chicago Bulls, and before that, the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I think he's been massive for the program. He still continues to talk about the program with such a big, great sort of presence as well. And he's always talked about if he has a chance to come back to the NBL, he will definitely take that at the back end of his career. And number 1, I think, is definitely the easiest pick of all time. We're talking about some sort of a draft. It's LaMelo Ball. You know, he brought not only the incredible basketball ability of a guy being the youngest player in NBL history to record a triple-double, but he brought the exposure, the attention. You know, we saw attention from ESPN in America, which the NBA had never seen. Sports Center, obviously, as well. Every second week, we're talking about LaMelo Ball. He was marketed beautifully, but also came over and performed, and then got his draft stock up from, you know, a late second round pick all the way up to a top 3 pick in the NBA draft as well. And it was a massive moment for the NBL. So, you know, he played for the Illawarra Hawks. They weren't doing too well at that stage. They were coming out of the Brian Goorjian era, I do believe. I could have got my sort of time zones mixed up, or eras mixed up there. But LaMelo Ball, in terms of where the NBL Next Star program is right now, I think has got the most sort of thanks to go to the NBL. I think from the NBL's perspective, if they didn't bring LaMelo Ball over, this could have fallen on its ass pretty quickly, I think, as well. So he brought the program to an absolute new level, and also brought the league to a new level in terms of exposure, competition, and the eyes as well. So, boys, this is where I want to throw it over to you. What are your thoughts? Obviously, you know, the NBL Next Star program is continuing this year. A massive amount of incredible players. I think Karim Lopez will enter this top 3 at some stage after it's all said and done with the New Zealand Breakers. But I'll throw to you first, Jez. What do you reckon about the three that are there, and any other thoughts on some players who may make the list?
Yeah, no, I have no arguments at all. I think you're pretty spot on. They're guys that have had their influence on the NBL Next Stars program in three very different ways. I think obviously with Alex Sarr, like you said, obviously the highest pick, Josh Giddey, the Australian, that's also having a pretty, a decent career at the moment, and bringing a lot of publicity to the NBL and Australian basketball with what he's doing. And then, LaMelo Ball was obviously the game changer. So I don't think you can absolutely not argue with the list. And I'm just excited to see where, if we talk about this at the start of next season, where we sort of put Karim Lopez, and because I just think he's going to be a phenomenon. We just rate him so much, and it's going to be interesting to see how he goes in the draft, if we can see him push for that number 2, even maybe number 1, if he has a massive season in the NBL, like anything is possible. And then to see what he does in his career, because you feel like he's definitely got the goods to be an absolute superstar in the NBL and then even the NBA. So if he can do what he's doing at 17 in the NBL, imagine what he's going to do when he's 22, 3 years old with some good NBA experience. So, yeah, I'm just excited. It's a great list, and it's definitely the program is just, phenomenal for basketball in Australia and the NBL.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking, how do I pull apart this? Give a bit of a different.
Yeah. How do you be an
opinion?
arsehole? How do you be a negative Nelly? Go for it. Just keep running with the team.
No, but I think I haven't been negative at all. You're the one hacking shit on me. I think the program is fantastic, and I could almost argue. Well, I think you think about it in a few different ways. How did they affect the league while they were here, and then what have they become since being a part of that program? Because you could argue that, like right now, like is Josh Giddey the most valuable of those three guys, given his spot in Chicago and how he played in Oklahoma, and then was obviously traded, but has continued to develop and is a fantastic player for the Bulls and also for the Australian team. Alex Sarr is playing right now in the Euros for France, and he's going to be a long time player in the league and for his country. Ball, a fantastic player. He's been hampered by injuries and he's stuck in that Charlotte team that's just going nowhere. But then you look back and there's been so many names, and I think it's an interesting take. You could almost look at and go, okay, well, who were the players or the people that were in this program that promised so much, but then just disappeared or fell flat or couldn't break because of an injury or because of just a bad situation? And I think it's important to kind of wrap it all up with that as well, because you take the good with the bad, and you can, I think, respect the program and respect how good the players that have gone on to do well, how much respect you have to have for that, because you see the names that haven't done well and the way they performed in the NBL and were good, but just didn't have that opportunity or the same opportunity, the same luck possibly on the front end to make it for themselves. So, boys, same thing. I'm extremely excited to see. You've seen Malik Lewis take leaps and bounds in this program last season and really pushed up his stock in a draft situation or to go to the NBA. Dash Daniels, massive name. We haven't mentioned him yet, and all eyes are going to be on him this season as well. I think it's fantastic. I love the Next Stars program and what they're doing, and it'll be good to, as you said, Jez, not only next year to look back on this, but maybe in 5 years' time and ask the same question.
Yeah. Do you think the way to go for the Next Stars program, though, like why we're here, is that they should be looking at this 2-year type of player that can be establish themselves in the NBL at a younger age, play a second season before they look at the draft? Because I think obviously, especially moving the players that they're getting, they're moving from a different country, they're young. It takes them a little while to get into the swing of things. Maybe it's the first time they've really moved away from home. Like, is it better that they're here on a 2-year contract or a possible 2-year contract than it is to just have these players here for just 1 year?
Well, it is a 2 year.
It's such a
right?
Yeah, sorry, you go.
Yeah, and I think it is. Depending
Yeah.
on what player it is, I think the idea, and a while back now, in my interview with Liam Santamaria, I think that if they have the opportunity, the 2 years is what they want.
Mm.
But obviously, in some situations, it's not possible. But I think the goal is 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's sort of how the contract is set out. Like the intention is for them to sign for a 2 year, but obviously some will just sign for one and then potentially, go elsewhere. Like we've seen with Anitano Almansa, for example, who's now in Real Madrid. But I think it is quite hard though for the NBL to lock these guys in for 2 years because it's so hard because a lot of guys are using the NBL. We have so many DPs right now in the NBL who could come over as NBL next stars, no questions asked. Jackson Ball is the New Zealand prodigy coming through. He signed as a DP for the Illawarra Hawks. He could have very much been a next star for this season and next season before the NBA draft. But he's come in as a DP because he wants to go to college and make money. And that's sort of where it's been so hard to contest with college right now because, if you sign as this full rostered player, there is implications on your college career when you are looking to sign those big deals, which we've seen with Ben Henschel, for example, who made too much money, but also was, not good enough with his grades as well. So probably not the best example. But, even Roman Salipa, who was at the Tasmania JackJumpers, had a lot of problems getting over to college purely based on the professional contract and how much money he did make, even though he didn't even play a game. So, it's such an interesting one. I think obviously the NBL has adjusted its sort of target audience from American players like LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton, for example, to all of the European guys coming over. Eternal Munster, Alexander Sarr, Karim Lopez, Ujmi Ndang, Ryan Rupert, all those sort of guys who have come over from the Euro Ball have really done well and then have either gone to the NBA or stayed an extra year and then made themselves a name in Europe as well. So, yeah, it's so interesting to see how the league goes. I don't necessarily think if they're a guy who is sort of maybe going to get drafted or maybe not, I think you can maybe get them to that second year. But I don't know. It's such an interesting one. It's a good debate for probably a longer segment where we can go into the NBL Next Star program. But the success of the program has just been so incredible. And I thought it was probably a great little way to start the Flashback Fix as well for NBL 26.
All right, boys, let's wrap it all up. Another fantastic episode in the bag. Coming up on the Basketball Fix, awards predictions, breaking news, as always, on the Instagram flow. Josh, going to get the memes going again, hopefully, with the season right around the corner. That's what we love.
Yeah, the memes will be coming back as well. It's been good. Have a bit of a break. We'll get it out eventually. Bit of a break from the memes, just purely on there's not too much to take the piss out of just yet, but we know as soon as the season comes along, there'll be plenty to take the piss out of as well. So, looking forward to that. And obviously, be able to get all the latest news and updates and everything like that as well over at the Basketball Fix. So, mate, this is going to be the biggest and best season we've ever seen in the NBL, and I can't wait to cover it with you two fellas, and obviously everyone else who jumps on the beyond the buzzer as well throughout the season.
Fantastic. My light's gone out at the top there. It means it's time to go, boys. Thanks for today, and remember, as always, we've given you your basketball fix.
Hey.